She ran from betrayal to start over. But instead of peace, she found a billionaire with a temper, a secret, and the power to ruin her or fall for her. Hello family, welcome to True Life Stories. Please subscribe and leave a like for us, it means the world to us. Also share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. The soft hum of the office lights above blended with the rhythmic clatter of keyboards and hushed conversations. Isabella Baker sat in her corner cubicle, eyes locked on the glowing screen before her. Her fingers danced across the keyboard with purpose, crafting the finishing touches of yet another campaign proposal, her fourth successful one this quarter. She didn't wait for praise anymore. Not openly. Not after 2 years of putting in more than anyone around her and still watching promotions pass her by like ghosts in the hallway. Still, she was proud. The client had loved the pitch. The numbers didn't lie. She leaned back, allowing herself a rare moment of satisfaction before slipping her phone out of the desk drawer. A text from Nathan lit up the screen. "Dinner tonight? I made reservations. You've earned it, superstar. Red heart." A small smile crept onto her face, despite the underlying fatigue in her chest. Nathan Palmer, charming, respected, slightly older, and her direct superior. They'd been together for 2 years now. He had been her comfort when she first joined the firm, her anchor in a chaotic world. Their relationship had been a carefully guarded secret at first, but everyone in the office suspected. It was hard to hide the way he always lingered a little longer by her desk, the way she laughed softer when he was near. But love, she believed, shouldn't be something you had to hide. Except lately, it felt like something was being hidden. From her. "Hey, Isabella. Killer job on the Dawson account," said Max, a junior associate as he passed by her desk. "You've got a gift." "Thanks," she replied, lips tight, trying not to sound bitter. A gift. One that apparently wasn't valuable enough to promote. That night, she stayed later than usual, waiting for Nathan to finish up a call. She wandered toward the executive meeting rooms, hoping to catch him as he wrapped up. As she rounded the corner, she stopped. Voices echoed through the half-open door. "She's good. I know that. But I can't promote her. It complicates things if she moves up. She's under me. I need her to stay under me professionally. You understand?" Isabella's breath caught in her throat. "I've kept her from the shortlist. She's a team player, sure, but a promotion right now could affect my standing. The board already thinks I'm too emotionally invested." Silence. Then HR's voice replied, cautious. "Nathan, this isn't sustainable. She deserves better." Isabella backed away, heart pounding, hands shaking. She felt sick. Her world spun as realization set in like ice crawling up her spine. She wasn't just being overlooked, she was being sabotaged. By the man who kissed her forehead every morning, who claimed to believe in her. The man she trusted with everything. The confrontation that followed wasn't quiet. Or civil. Nathan walked into the apartment they shared later that night, smiling as if nothing had happened. She was waiting on the couch, his words still replaying in her mind like poison. "You've been holding me back," she said coldly, eyes fixed on him. "You sabotaged my career." "What are you talking about?" he asked, clearly thrown off by her tone. "I heard you. With HR. You said I need to stay under you." Nathan's face went pale for a second before shifting into defense. "Isabella, it's not like that. Don't lie to me," she snapped. "For 2 years, I gave everything to this job, and to you. And you couldn't handle the idea of me rising higher." He took a step forward, reaching for her hand. "It wasn't about control. It's politics. Timing. You wouldn't understand the pressure I'm under." "No," she interrupted, pulling her hand away. "What I don't understand is how you could look me in the eye every day and pretend you supported me." Her voice cracked. The hurt was louder than the anger now. "You were supposed to be on my side. I am on your side." "No," she whispered, tears finally slipping down her cheek. "You're in my way." She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she packed. Every drawer, every corner of the apartment felt like a betrayal. her toothbrush next to his, her books on their shared shelf, the photos of vacations and birthdays, now cruel jokes she didn't laugh at anymore. The next morning, she walked into HR and asked for a transfer. "I don't care where," she said. "Anywhere but here." They offered her something better, a coveted spot at the company's headquarters in the capital. It was bigger, faster, more demanding. But it was away from Nathan. Away from the lie she'd been living. A week later, she was gone. As the train pulled out of the city, Isabella watched the skyline disappear. Her heart ached, but for the first time in a long while, she felt something else too. Freedom. Not peace. Not yet, but something like hope. The city felt bigger, louder, the moment Isabella stepped off the train. Glass towers pierced the sky like monuments of ambition, and the cold December air bit at her cheeks as she dragged her suitcase through the bustling terminal. The rhythm of the capital was different, more aggressive, more alive. Everyone moved fast. No one looked back. Just how she wanted it. Isabella hailed a cab with a stiff arm, reciting the address of her new apartment with a voice steadier than she felt. It wasn't much, a one-bedroom unit on the 12th floor of a refurbished brick building just outside the downtown core. But it was hers. No shared closets. No passive-aggressive notes on the fridge. No Nathan. She stood by the window that first night, watching the city pulse with light and movement, and told herself, this is where it all begins again. Monday arrived too quickly. The Sinclair corporate tower loomed over her like a steel sentinel. 39 floors of power, prestige, and polished ambition. Isabella adjusted the collar of her navy blazer, smoothed down the front of her blouse, and walked through the rotating glass doors with a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Inside, it was quiet, not in silence, but in control. No chaotic calls or clacking heels. Everything was streamlined, elegant, cold. The receptionist greeted her by name. "Welcome, Ms. Baker. Mr. Sinclair will see you at 9 a.m. sharp." Mr. Sinclair. Damien Sinclair, the billionaire CEO. The man with a reputation colder than his boardroom. A genius strategist, impossible to please, and allegedly allergic to small talk. Isabella had only ever seen him once at a national summit via livestream. He hadn't even blinked during a 40-minute panel discussion. "Right," she said. "Thank you." She was escorted to the 36th floor, executive division, where the air itself felt expensive. A personal assistant with a Bluetooth headset and a mechanical smile offered her coffee and a sleek tablet preloaded with company protocols. "Isabella Baker," the assistant said, tapping her earpiece. "Your meeting's in 5 minutes. Word of advice, Mr. Sinclair doesn't like being kept waiting. Or interrupted. Or contradicted." The assistant vanished before Isabella could even fake a laugh. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows cast daylight over black marble floors and minimalist decor. Behind a glass desk stood the man himself, Damien Sinclair. He didn't rise when she entered. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe mid-30s, dressed in a crisp charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His face was sharp, unreadable, with eyes like polished steel. The kind of man who didn't smile unless it was strategic. "Isabella Baker," he said, voice low and smooth. "Take a seat." She obeyed, suddenly aware of every breath. "I reviewed your portfolio," he continued, tapping a screen on his desk. "Your numbers are excellent. Your campaigns, especially the one with Dawson and Co., exceeded expectations. Which makes one thing very curious." She tilted her head. "Curious, sir? You weren't promoted." A flicker of heat flushed her neck. "No, I wasn't." Damien's eyes flicked to hers, studying her face as if deciphering an equation. "Either your former department was incompetent, or they felt threatened. Either way, that won't happen here. You'll work under me directly. I expect results, and I don't tolerate excuses." A pause. He leaned back in his chair. "Any problems with that?" Isabella met his gaze, heartbeat wild in her chest. "No, sir. I'm ready to work." Damien nodded once. "We'll see." The next few days tested every fiber of her resolve. Damien Sinclair didn't lead like anyone else she'd worked under. He gave no compliments, no comfort, and no second chances. Memos were clipped and clinical. Meetings were surgical. And yet, everything worked. The campaigns he ran were precision masterpieces. He thought 5 steps ahead of the market and 10 steps ahead of his competitors. Isabella was tossed into the deep end on day 1. "Fix the copy," he'd say without looking up. "This design lacks punch. Don't waste my time with mediocrity." She found herself staying late, arriving early, obsessing over details. But despite the pressure, or maybe because of it, she began to sharpen. Damien wasn't warm, but he noticed everything. A small correction here. A rare nod there. She learned to read his silences, to decode his demands. There was something addictive about the way he worked, focused, intense, unshakable. But it wasn't just the job. It was him. The way he moved through the office like he owned the world. Because he did. The way his voice cut through a room. The way he never flinched under pressure, but always held everyone to a standard that made her want to rise. It infuriated her. It fascinated her. And it scared the hell out of her. By the end of her second week, Isabella sat at her desk long after most lights had dimmed, staring at the glowing campaign board in the strategy room. Still here. She turned. Damien stood in the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened just slightly, the most unguarded she'd ever seen him. "I wanted to refine the pitch for tomorrow," she said. He walked in slowly, scanning the whiteboard, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he picked up a marker and began adding notes beside hers. She watched, silent. The two of them worked side by side, no small talk, no formalities, just ideas. Just business. And something else. Unspoken. Unresolved. He handed her the marker back, brushing her fingers lightly. "Don't try to please me," he said, voice lower now. "Just impress me." Then he walked out, leaving her heart pounding in the dark. That night, after Damien handed her the marker and walked out, Isabella didn't move for a full minute. Her hand was still half raised. Her skin still tingled where his fingers had brushed hers. Barely, casually, accidentally. Except nothing about Damien Sinclair ever felt accidental. The next morning, the office buzzed with its usual cold efficiency, but Isabella saw it differently now. She was no longer just navigating a new job in a new city. She was learning how to stand toe-to-toe with the most enigmatic man she'd ever worked for. And maybe, unknowingly, challenging him in ways no one else dared to. Their dynamic had shifted. It wasn't obvious. Damien remained composed, clipped, professional. He didn't linger at her desk. He didn't flirt. But there was something in the air now, an edge. He paid closer attention to her pitches, questioned her deeper in meetings, and his eyes lingered a little longer during late-night debriefs. And Isabella? She stopped tiptoeing. "Actually, I disagree," she said one afternoon during a team strategy session. The room fell silent. A dozen eyes turned toward her like she'd just insulted the Pope. Damien arched a brow, barely tilting his head. "Elaborate." She did. Her voice was steady, her argument sharp. She challenged the core concept of his campaign plan. Respectfully, but boldly. Offering an alternative structure she believed would resonate better with younger audiences. Silence followed. Then a slow, almost imperceptible nod. "Execute your version. Let's see if it works." And just like that, she'd done something no one else in that boardroom had dared. Over the next 2 weeks, tension threaded every interaction between them. Not tension of hostility, but the kind that burns quietly beneath the surface, the kind people pretend not to notice. Their conversations were laced with double meanings. Their eye contact stretched 1 second too long. The space between them in conference rooms felt charged. Isabella caught him watching her once, not inappropriately, not lingering. Just watching. Like he was trying to figure her out, and wasn't sure if he wanted to. She tried to ignore it. She tried harder to pretend it wasn't affecting her. But it was. Because for all the pain she'd left behind, for all the vows she made to keep her heart guarded, something in Damien Sinclair's quiet intensity pulled at her like a riptide. One Friday evening, it all came to a head. It was just the two of them left in the office, again. A major client had changed specs last minute, and Isabella stayed behind to rework the presentation. Damien remained, pacing silently near the windows, sipping his scotch like it was just another spreadsheet. "You don't have to wait," she said, eyes flicking to him. "I've got this." "I know you do." The silence stretched. Rain pattered against the floor-to-ceiling glass, the city a blur of wet lights behind him. "You're not what I expected," he said suddenly. She looked up. "What did you expect?" He tilted his head slightly. "Someone who wanted to be liked. I stopped needing to be liked a long time ago." "Because of him?" Her breath caught. She hadn't spoken of Nathan. Not to anyone. Not even to the HR rep who approved her transfer. She straightened. "Is this still a work conversation?" Damien's lips curved. Not quite a smile, but close. "No, it's not." He crossed the room slowly, stopping just a few feet from her. She could feel the heat coming off his body, see the tiny scar near his jawline, hear the subtle shift in his breathing. "I've been called cold," he said. "Obsessive. Difficult." She met his gaze without flinching. All true so far. Another flicker of amusement in his eyes. "But I'm never dishonest. When I want something, I don't lie about it." Her pulse throbbed in her throat. "And what do you want, Mr. Sinclair?" His eyes dropped to her mouth for a fraction of a second, then rose again. "To know why I can't stop thinking about someone I shouldn't be thinking about." For a moment, Isabella forgot every rule, every warning she'd made to herself. Her past, her pain, the career she'd risked so much to rebuild. There was only this room, this man, this moment, and the very real awareness that one step forward could change everything. "Damien," she said softly, "I came here to start over. Not to get involved with another boss who sees me as a temporary distraction." "You're not temporary," he said immediately. "And I don't get distracted." Something inside her fractured at the force of those words, the certainty in them, the restraint. But he didn't touch her. He didn't move closer. Instead, he stepped back. Slowly, deliberately. "I'll see you Monday," he said, his voice a little rougher than before. Then he turned and left, the door clicking softly shut behind him. Isabella stood there for a long time, alone in the dimly lit office, the city still weeping against the windows. She had faced down liars, manipulators, cowards. But this, whatever this was, it wasn't easy. And it wasn't safe. But damn it, it felt real. Monday came, but the air between them had changed. It wasn't in what Damien said. He was still crisp, efficient, and precise with every word, but in what he didn't say. In the way his gaze lingered when she entered a room. In the silence between conversations that felt fuller than speech. Isabella tried to bury herself in work, determined not to be the woman who lost focus over a man, especially one who had the power to make or break her career with a single signature. But it was impossible to ignore the current that pulled between them whenever they stood too close or locked eyes too long. They hadn't touched. Not since that night. But they were orbiting something electric. Something fragile. And dangerous. It was the company retreat that unraveled the distance. A mandatory 2-day getaway at a luxury resort just outside the city, designed to foster collaboration and cohesion, as HR called it. In reality, it was an annual test of boundaries, egos, and barely masked rivalries. Isabella hated forced social settings. She hated them even more when Damien Sinclair was in the room, because there was no place to hide. She arrived in the late afternoon with the rest of the executive team, dressed in a sleek black pantsuit and heels that could survive gravel. The welcome cocktails were already underway by the lakefront terrace, and the murmurs began the second she stepped in. "She's the one working directly under Sinclair. He's never let anyone get that close. She's the rising star. Give it a year, she'll be running the place or burned out." She ignored the whispers. She'd learned to. But when she spotted Damien at the far end of the terrace, alone, drink in hand, suit jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled up and collar slightly undone, it was impossible to ignore the thrum in her chest. Their eyes met across the distance. He nodded once. Subtle. Controlled. She didn't approach. Not yet. Later that evening, after the team-building exercises, read corporate charades, there was an informal dinner by the fire pit. Long tables, string lights overhead, soft jazz humming from hidden speakers. Isabella sat with a few department leads, laughing quietly at a story someone told about an office printer rebellion. She didn't notice Damien had moved closer until he spoke beside her. "May I steal you for a walk?" The table quieted. No one dared say a word, but their eyes said everything. Isabella stood, pulse racing. Of course. They walked in silence for several minutes, following the winding stone path that led away from the firelight and toward the edge of the lake. The air was cool, and the moon shimmered off the water like spilled silver. When they stopped, it was near a small wooden dock. Just the two of them. No eyes. No roles. No glass walls or watchful assistants. "I don't usually do this," he said, looking out over the lake. "Retreats?" she asked, trying to keep it light. "Letting someone get this close." Isabella's throat tightened. The moonlight carved shadows across his face, softening the sharp lines and making him look human. Maybe even vulnerable. "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've worked with brilliant women before. People far more experienced. Safer choices." He turned to face her fully, the weight of his gaze pressing into her like gravity. "Because you challenge me," he said. "Because you don't need me. And because the one thing I've always known how to do, compartmentalize, doesn't seem to work around you." Her heart hammered in her chest. "I didn't come here for this," she said. "After everything that happened, I didn't think I could ever trust someone again. Especially someone with this much power over me." "You can leave," he said. "You can walk away, and I'll never bring it up again. But if you stay," he paused, stepping closer, voice low, almost raw, "you have to know I'm not playing a game." She swallowed hard. "Neither am I." And then, as if the moment had been waiting for them all along, he reached out and cupped the side of her face, slowly, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met in a kiss that was neither rushed nor hesitant. It was slow, deliberate, a collision of restraint and hunger that had been simmering for weeks. Her hands found his chest, warm beneath his shirt, and his fingers tangled in her hair like he'd wanted to do it since the first day she walked into his office. The kiss deepened, breath stolen, time forgotten. When they finally parted, foreheads pressed together, he whispered, "This changes everything." "I know." The days that followed were a blur of stolen glances and unspoken promises. They didn't flaunt it, didn't risk exposure. But something about the way Damien moved when Isabella entered the room, the way his voice softened when speaking to her, the way he trusted her with decisions no one else had seen, was enough for the smart ones to start suspecting. But it didn't matter. Not to her. Not then. Because for the first time in years, Isabella felt seen. Not as someone's assistant, not as someone to manage or control, but as an equal. As a woman with a mind worth listening to and a heart someone wanted to protect, not cage. She was rising, and he wasn't trying to stop her. And somewhere in another city, Nathan Palmer scrolled through a press release. Isabella Baker joins Sinclair's inner circle, the new face of innovation. He stared at her picture, confident, radiant, unmistakably happy. And his jaw clenched. "Let's see how long you last." The Monday after the retreat, everything felt different. But not outwardly. Outwardly, Isabella Baker walked through the Sinclair corporate tower with her head high, her heels steady, and her expression unreadable. She was polished, professional, and composed. Just as she always was. But beneath that sleek exterior, she was burning alive. It wasn't just the stolen kiss on the dock or the way Damien had looked at her afterward like she wasn't just a woman. She was his woman. It was how she now existed in his world without pretense. No more pretending their interactions were strictly business. No more second-guessing what a long look or soft tone meant. They both knew. They were together. Secretly. Carefully. Completely. But nothing stayed secret forever in a place like Sinclair. Not when the stakes were this high. Not when you were rising. And Isabella? She wasn't just rising. She was ascending like a rocket. The campaign she had challenged Damien on, the one she'd fought for during that boardroom standoff, launched that week. And it blew up. National coverage. Viral traction. Client growth exceeded projections by 240% in the first month. The firm's stock climbed 4 points in a week. Forbes called the approach a case study in modern marketing psychology. Adweek hailed her as the face of a new generation of female-led innovation. Suddenly, Isabella Baker wasn't just Sinclair's in-house strategist. She was the company's newest star. And with stardom came scrutiny. The whispers started small. She came from a satellite office, didn't she? Funny how fast she got promoted. She's always in meetings with Sinclair. Alone. Maybe she's talented. Or maybe she's just lucky. But lucky didn't explain the metrics. Lucky didn't explain the way she handled million-dollar accounts like she was born for it. Or how Damien trusted her to present solo to the board. Or how clients were now requesting her by name. Still, perception was currency, and envy had teeth. The first article dropped on a Thursday morning, buried deep in a gossip column that catered to board investors and scandal-hungry interns. CEO Damien Sinclair's new protege, raising eyebrows inside the tower. Is there more than business behind the boardroom door? There was no proof. No quotes. Just suggestive language, blurry photos from the retreat, and one damning question. Are Sinclair's golden promotions based on merit or something else? Isabella sat frozen in the cafe across from the office, staring at the screen of her phone. Her hand tightened around the coffee cup. Heat bled into her palm, but she didn't feel it. She didn't need to scroll. She already knew what came next. The rumors would double. People would read it and decide she was sleeping her way to the top. Not because of anything she did, but because she was a woman who rose too fast, who stood too close to power. Her mind reeled. How had this started? Who leaked photos from the retreat? Who'd been watching them? And worse, what would Damien do? Would he deny her? Distance himself? Discredit everything they had to protect the company? Panic twisted in her stomach. But she didn't have time to unravel. Because 30 minutes later, she was due in a strategy summit with the entire executive team, and Damien. He didn't flinch. When she entered the boardroom, his eyes met hers for the briefest moment. Calm. Controlled. Almost cold. Isabella, he said with a nod. Glad you're here. Begin with the acquisition pitch. Not a hint of anything else. No emotion. No reaction. Just protocol. It shouldn't have hurt. But it did. Because for all the chemistry, the connection, the truth they'd shared, here he was, acting like she was no different than anyone else in the room. Part of her respected it. Another part of her, the woman who'd let him kiss her under the stars and confessed her fears to him, felt gutted. She delivered the pitch flawlessly. As always, her voice never wavered. Her hands never shook. But inside, she was crumbling. After the meeting, she waited. He didn't call her into his office. He didn't text. He didn't come to her. It wasn't until that night, long after the lights had gone out in most of the tower, that she found herself standing in front of his office door, heart hammering like it wanted to escape her chest. She didn't knock. She just opened the door. He was there, jacket off, sleeves rolled, staring out the window like he was waiting for the city to answer questions he couldn't. When he turned, she didn't speak. She just looked at him, letting the silence between them scream. Say something, she whispered finally. Damien exhaled, dragging a hand through his head, a rare sign of frustration. I had to let it play out today. You understand that, don't you? No, she said, voice cracking. I don't understand silence. I don't understand you looking at me like I'm just a name on a file. If I reacted, I'd make it worse. You said I wasn't temporary, she said, eyes glassy. You said I wasn't a game. But now that people are watching, you're willing to let me stand in front of the fire alone. I'm protecting you. No, you're protecting yourself. Her words hit him like a slap, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. Damien stepped forward. If I stand beside you publicly, you'll be crucified. They'll say everything you earned was because of me. Every headline will be about us. Not your work. Not your mind. Just this. Isabella blinked. Then what do we do? He hesitated. And that hesitation, that split second of indecision, said everything. She nodded slowly, stepping back. I fought like hell to be seen. I won't disappear for you. Then she walked out. By morning, the gossip article had gone viral. And Nathan Palmer, watching from his new office in the same building, smiled as he forwarded the link to 3 board members with the subject line, FYI, conflict of interest? The storm broke fast. By midweek, the article had been picked up by a mainstream business blog. Then another. Then a dozen more. What started as an anonymous gossip piece had become a wildfire. Headlines twisted Isabella's success into a scandal, dissecting every decision, every appearance, every promotion she'd received since arriving at Sinclair headquarters. Sinclair's favorite, was her rise earned or engineered? Power play or power trip? Isabella Baker at the center of corporate controversy. Inside the inner circle. Sleeping your way to the C-suite? The media didn't need facts. It fed on suggestion. They used grainy retreat photos, fabricated timelines, and anonymous internal sources to paint her not as a trailblazing strategist, but as the CEO's latest conquest. The comments were worse. Another pretty face faking it till she makes it. CEO's girlfriend gets a promotion? Shocking. Let's see how smart she is when Sinclair drops her. HR launched a formal investigation. They summoned her with a clinical email. Subject: inquiry regarding ethical boundaries and internal conduct. Isabella sat alone in the sterile conference room that smelled faintly of paper and silence, facing 2 senior HR officers and a neutral legal liaison, who didn't even make eye contact. Their questions weren't overtly hostile, but they were careful, loaded with implications. Did Mr. Sinclair ever offer you favors outside of your professional responsibilities? Have you ever received an opportunity that wasn't extended to others on your level? Would you describe your relationship with Mr. Sinclair as purely professional? Each time she said, I earned every success, it felt less like a declaration and more like a plea. But there were no rules protecting women from perception. No policies shielding hard-won merit from misogyny disguised as concern. She walked out of that room feeling smaller than she had in years. And Damien? He didn't call, didn't text, didn't show. 3 days passed. Not a word, not even a glance in passing. He hadn't denied the rumors. But worse, he hadn't defended her either. Not publicly, not privately. It was as if, in one breath, she'd been erased from his world. Isabella tried to tell herself this was strategy. Damage control. She tried to rationalize it the way he always had. Emotions complicate business. But every hour of silence was a slow betrayal, and by Friday, the pain had calcified into something else. Resolve. She printed her resignation. Not because she was guilty, because she was done letting someone else's silence define her worth. She walked into Damien's office unannounced. His assistant started to protest, but she didn't stop. He was at his desk, as if nothing had happened. Tense. Sharp. Composed. But when he looked up and saw her face, something shifted. Isabella, I'm not here to argue, she said, voice firm. I'm not here to ask for an explanation. I just want you to know I'm resigning. Effective immediately. He stood. Don't. You don't need to. I do, she cut in. I built something here. With my mind. My skill. My fire. And now every headline reduces me to a footnote in your story. His jaw tightened. I never meant for this to happen. You didn't do anything to stop it either. A beat of silence. Damien walked around the desk, closing the space between them. Isabella, if I speak up now, it escalates everything. It confirms the speculation. Her laugh was short and bitter. It's already confirmed. At least to the people who matter. To them, I'm just another woman who slept her way up. And what did you do while they said that about me? You hid. Damien's voice dropped, low and strained. I was trying to protect. No, she said again, cutting him off. You were protecting yourself. Your company. Your image. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. I loved this job. I loved what I was building. And I cared about you. Damien stepped closer. You still do. She shook her head. Not enough to stay where I'm not defended. She placed the envelope on his desk. I'm done letting men decide how high I'm allowed to rise. She didn't take the elevator down. She walked, floor by floor, as if descending from a tower she'd built with her own hands, now being forced to leave before it collapsed around her. That night, the headlines continued. And Damien? He stared at the resignation letter long after the office emptied. A single line burned in his memory. I'm done letting men decide how high I'm allowed to rise. He had power. He had silence. And now he had neither. Across the city, Nathan Palmer sat with a scotch in one hand and his phone in the other. He scrolled through the coverage, grinning at the fallout. He thought he'd won. But he hadn't seen the last of Isabella Baker. Not yet. 2 weeks passed. 2 long, echoing weeks. The city moved on as cities do. New headlines replaced the old. New scandals consumed the press. New stars rose. Isabella Baker had vanished from the spotlight without a trace, and for most of the corporate world, that was the end of the story. But not for him, and not for her. Damien Sinclair hadn't spoken to anyone about what happened. He hadn't responded to interview requests, hadn't issued statements, hadn't made a single move in defense or denial. The board was tense. The leadership team was uneasy. Investors whispered about reputational risks. But Damien didn't flinch. Because he wasn't staying silent this time. He was waiting. Then came the press conference. The invites went out without explanation. Sinclair Corporate had scheduled a surprise media announcement. No one knew why. Rumors ranged from a new acquisition to a possible resignation. By noon, the conference room was packed. Cameras, reporters, executives. The air buzzed with curiosity, tension, and in some circles, a quiet hope for drama. Damien walked in alone. No legal team. No board members. Just him. He stepped up to the podium, calm as ever in his signature charcoal suit. But there was something different in his posture. Not cold. Not reserved. Human. He looked directly into the crowd. I'll be brief, he began. Because clarity deserves speed. He paused. 2 weeks ago, a brilliant strategist, Isabella Baker, resigned from this company amid a storm of unethical speculation and gendered attacks. Her integrity was questioned. Her achievements were undermined. And I remained silent. He let the words settle. I did it because I was advised to. Because PR said silence was safer. Because damage control is a language we speak fluently in boardrooms. He leaned forward, hands resting on the podium. But silence isn't neutral. It's complicity in disguise. Gasps rippled through the room. Phones rose to record. I'm here today to correct that mistake. He tapped the mic once. Isabella Baker's success at this company was not a result of favoritism. It was not personal. It was earned. Every campaign she led, every metric she moved, every late night she spent in this tower, she did that herself. She was the best strategist we had. She is still the most brilliant mind I've ever worked with. His voice hardened, but not with anger, with conviction. If I failed her, it wasn't because I doubted her worth. It was because I thought stepping aside would protect her from a system rigged against women who dare to rise. I see now, protection was never what she needed. What she deserved was partnership. He let the silence hang. And so, effective immediately, Sinclair Corporate is launching a new division. One built around progressive leadership, innovation, and fearless strategy. It will be led by Isabella Baker. As partner. As executive. On her own terms. The room exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Flashbulbs went off like fireworks. But Damien wasn't done. One more thing. He paused, this time softer. My personal relationship with Isabella Baker began after she proved herself in this company. It was not a secret. It was not coercive. It was not a condition of her success. He stepped back from the mic. I loved her. I still do. But none of what she accomplished had anything to do with me. And everything to do with her. Then he walked off stage, not rushed, not rattled. Free. The next day, Isabella watched the clip alone in a quiet cafe. She hadn't expected it. Not after everything. As Damien spoke those words, what she deserved was partnership. Tears blurred her vision. Not from weakness. From validation. The kind she had fought years to earn. The kind no man had ever given her without agenda or restraint. And now, it was hers. 3 days later, she returned. Not through the front doors of Sinclair, but to a new office 2 blocks away, bearing her name on the etched glass. Baker Strategic, a Sinclair Innovation Company CEO and founding partner, Isabella Baker. It wasn't a promotion. It wasn't a favor. It was a legacy she was about to build with her name at the top, and no one standing in her way. He showed up late that afternoon. No cameras. No assistants. Just Damien. He stood in the doorway, hands in his coat pockets, waiting like a man uncertain for the first time in his life. "I didn't know if you'd come," she said, eyes not leaving her laptop. "I didn't know if I should," he replied softly. She looked up. His face was tired. Unshaven. Real. "I meant every word," he said. "But it wasn't about winning you back. It was about doing the one thing I should have done from the start. Stand behind you, not in front." Isabella closed the laptop. "I never wanted you to stand behind me, Damien." He hesitated. "I wanted you to stand with me. That was all." The space between them disappeared like it had never existed. He walked forward. She rose. And in that quiet moment, no cameras, no scandal, no company politics, just 2 people who had lost and fought and clawed their way back. They kissed. Not like fire this time, but like home. Isabella didn't just survive. She soared. Her face returned to the headlines, but this time on her terms. Isabella Baker named youngest female executive partner in Sinclair corporate history. Baker Strategic disrupts industry with record-breaking first quarter. From betrayal to billion-dollar brilliance, Isabella Baker's story redefines corporate power. The world finally saw her for what she always was. Not someone's assistant. Not someone's lover. Not someone's story. The author of her own. We have come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.